It's Aloha Friday. I don't work until Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, October, November, December. Do. I'm gonna watch Breakfast with Bob. Choo.
Hey everybody, thank you, Poncho Man. Bob Babbitt here, not quite Kona edition of Breakfast with Bob. We are brought to you by Hoka One One, by Credo Tri, Four Seasons Hawaii, Challenge Daytona, Form Goggles, Canyon Bikes, Normatec, Amp Human, VeloFix, UCAN, and our Challenged Athletes Foundation. Our next guest, third place in both 2017 and 2018 in Kona, Hawaii, Mr. David McNamee. David, how you doing?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's great to be speaking to you.
Always a pleasure, David. Love chatting with you.
I'm good.
In my time zone, I could be doing porridge. It's a little too late for you for porridge, right?
Well, it's 8 o'clock here, so you can always have porridge before you go to bed. It's not a breakfast thing. It's an all-day situation.
It's an all-day thing, right? When you're from Scotland, you can have porridge anytime.
Anytime. It's sort of what we live on. Porridge and whiskey.
Together. You ever do it together?
Never tried it together. You can do porridge and Baileys.
Oh, pork and Baileys. Okay.
If you want that alcohol kick before you go to bed, just a little bit of Baileys into it.
I like it. Hey, so coming off of 2/3 in a row last year, DNF. What, you were sick leading into the race?
Yeah, last year. Yeah, I remember having breakfast with you 3 days before the race last year, and you asked me how I was feeling and stuff. And I'm like, yep, I'm great. I'm good to go. And I have to be honest with you, Bob. I was lying my ass off.
You were lying. So were you sick? Were you injured? What was going on?
I came to Hawaii in great shape last year. I think better than I had been in previous seasons. And yeah, just on the Monday of race week, I sort of gradually got sicker as the day went on. And yeah, I just sort of, it's 5 days before the race and I just sort of never recovered. So yeah, it was a difficult week. It felt even worse because lying to people. Like I lied to Bob Babbitt.
You're the first one ever.
And I'm just like, and then you get, and I started the race. I think even after I spoke to you, I still wasn't sure whether I could even get my head around racing.
Right.
But no, I started the race and the first half of the swim was okay. And then I just felt weak. Just everything caught up with me, and I remember getting to the end of the swim just being like super hungry, like I just needed another bowl of porridge or something.
Yeah.
And we were leaving the pier, you get out. I'm like, God, I'd rather just run into the King Cam right now and have the buffet breakfast than going out into the bike course. It was just, yeah. And then I got out into the bike course just because it's Hawaii and the crowds are incredible and it is the biggest day in our sport, and I wanted to try, but I just had nothing. Yeah. And yeah, I made it to about 50 kilometers on the bike, and it was at that point where I was like, Lucy Charles is going to come past at some point.
Right.
It's like, and I got to sort of the point where you cut off the Queen Kate and head up to High V, and I was like, I couldn't even get my head around getting up there and back. And that was sort of, that was me. I just sort of stopped.
Yeah. Would you get a cab? How'd you get back?
Well, thankfully, I met some nice Belgian people that, after like 10 minutes after I'd stopped, I was sat at the side of the road cheering people on with a beer.
Oh, they came out and they gave you beer.
Yeah, I had a beer. I had to wait like 2 or 3 hours to get a lift back. By that point, I was very sunburnt.
You were stuck out for 2-3 hours.
Like for me, it was great to sort of watch the races. Obviously, you're going through all the emotions, but I think I'd sort of accepted it even before the race started that it might just not be my day. And yeah, I sort of sat for 2 or 3 hours with some nice Belgian guys having some beers sort of on the Queen K, which I never thought that would be my Kona race day experience, but yeah, sort of different from normal.
So when you're so much of the season is built around Kona, October, and then it's off season. When that Kona doesn't go well, how did you handle that coming home? How hard was that for you?
It was difficult. I think sort of you get back to Europe and the race season's over with here. There's no more races. And it was difficult just knowing that I was in very good shape going into the event and then having nothing to show for it. But yeah, I think sort of, I always think a good athlete can sort of move on quickly, like learn from the experience. And, you know, obviously I thought, okay, well, it's only 1 year until I can come back and sort of get my sort of revenge on the race.
Right.
Obviously it's not worked out. But yeah, for me, yeah, I suppose the last 12 months have just been a roller coaster of emotions.
So you go over there in 2015, you get 11th, then 16th, 13th, and then third and third. Obviously, there's something about that island that agrees with you. You do well there. Did you know that when you got over there in 2015? Did you have a sense that it would be a good place for you to race?
Yeah, I think sort of ever since I raced triathlon, I always did well in like really humid conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember getting to Hawaii and I appreciate the heat and the humidity, but I quickly realized that I could still perform even in the training sessions that I was doing pre-2015 leading into race week.
Mm-hmm.
I still felt good out in the heat and the humidity. And that's when I sort of had an idea that I could perform still in Hawaii. And I think also for me, just Kona is the biggest day in our sport. It's the biggest competition. It's the highest level by far. And I've always excelled when the competition is that fierce.
Yeah.
I love to race. It's not like sometimes we go to Ironman events and there's maybe like 5 or 6 top level athletes. And it's almost like you're racing sort of in a small group. Whereas in Hawaii, it's 55 guys that just want to tear the hell out of each other. And I just love that.
What I like about that is a lot of other races, guys are going there, but maybe they're training through it for a different race. They have a different purpose. Everybody in Kona is there to win, right? Everybody there to have the best race of life. So you know the competition is going to be stiffer there than anywhere else on the planet.
This is it. And this is why I love it. You want to go against the best in the world when they're on their best days. And that only happens in our sport in Hawaii. And that's why every year that will always be my focus. That's what gets me through the winter's training. That's what I build my whole 12 months around. I don't want to go to like the small events during the year and perform amazingly, then always go to Hawaii and sort of fall apart.
Right.
I want to very much be like, well, Hawaii is for me what I love about the sport. It's what got me into the sport of Ironman. And it's what I want to sort of be remembered for is the performances at Hawaii. Like everybody remembers who won Hawaii for the last 41 years now, 42 years. But they can't remember who won like Ironman, whatever, 3 years ago. It's sort of, our sport is Hawaii. It's our Super Bowl.
So you're in Girona. And did you go to Girona to train specifically with Jan Frodeno back in the day? Because he was based there?
No, I originally came to Girona in 2010
When you were
for
still
like a training camp. Yeah, so I came here in 2010 for a training camp with British Triathlon, and that's my first sort of initiation to Girona.
Uh-huh.
But I mainly moved here because in 2014 I was living very close by in Banyoles, which is like 15 kilometers away.
Yeah.
And it's also where Mario Mola and his partner are based for part of the year. And yeah, I'm very good friends with them, and that's why I decided to sort of move to Girona. And that was the winter of 2015. So at that point, Jan was only in Girona during the summer. So yeah, for the first 2 or 3 winters, especially here in Girona, I was like the only triathlete in town.
And so you started training, you and Jan and Nick, right? Were training buddies.
Yeah, so we trained together. I swam with Jan in 2016, and then we did a lot more training together in 2017, leading up to the first year I was in the podium in Hawaii. It was a great experience. I learned a lot, but yeah, it's sort of changed now.
Does it change when, I remember back in the day, we had Tim DeBoom, who ended up winning the Ironman a couple times, and Peter Reed, who won it 3 times. Those guys were training buddies until Peter won and Tim was 10th. And Tim kept thinking, I beat that guy in training every day. And then on race day, he won, I took 10th. And they couldn't train together anymore. So 2017 was the year Jan ended up walking a bunch of marathon. You got 3rd. Did the training together sort of end after that?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, I can't really phrase. Yeah, that's the truth.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was obviously Jan's decision. Yeah, for me, it obviously worked out well.
Yeah.
I think, let's be honest, nobody expected me to come 3rd in 2017.
Right.
I think half of the people that watched the race thought I was an age group athlete, or B, had cut the course. So yeah, obviously it worked out well for me, but obviously Jan, all of a sudden, I started being one of the main competition.
Right. Yeah. It changes the dynamic
Yeah,
between you guys, right?
and yeah, for me it was very sad, but yeah, obviously I sort of moved on, and to come back the following year and be in the podium again was, yeah, it was great. It was that sort of confidence that I knew what I was doing to get on the podium.
Right.
And now obviously I just need to, try and move up those 2 more steps to the victory.
So I always find that interesting because, there's a fine line sometimes sometimes people see talent in another person before that person sees it. Obviously, you were incredibly talented. Training together with Nick and Jan, I'm sure helped in 2017. Then when you weren't training with them, being able to get 3rd again in 18 sort of validated to yourself, I am pretty good. I can do this.
Yeah,
I know what I'm doing.
I think, to be honest, the biggest change I've made in my training was that I just learned to let myself recover. I think I had the confidence to realize that, yeah, some days you just have to take it easy and relax and let the body recover. I think up until that point, I wasn't secure enough in my training. And I felt like I was always having to push it every single day. And over time, that sort of quality in the sessions just evaporate. But you see that, but my instinct was to be like, well, I need to train harder, not recover. I just need to train harder. And I think that was sort of what the main thing I took away from training with Jan and Nick was that you train very hard, but then you have to recover to let the body get better. And I think that was sort of my main sort of learning point. And I've taken that, and that's sort of always stuck with me.
So as an ITU athlete and a UK athlete, so you're training with, back then, Alistair and Jonny Brownlee, right? So you've got this great background of training. You learn from the best, right? But that had to be frustrating trying to make the UK team when the 2 best guys in the world, or 2 of the 3 best guys in the world, are on your team. Did that sort of hasten moving to longer distance?
Yeah, I think that was there was a lot of reasons why I moved on quickly from Olympic distance to,
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll always remember the end of 2014. It was still 2 years to the Olympic Games, but having my sort of usual, in British triathlon, you'd have like a performance review with all the senior sort of coaches and performance director. And I very much, this was 18, 19 months before the Olympic Games. And I was like, look, do I have any chance of being on the Olympic team? Like, I'm top 10 in the world. I'm third ranked British athlete, but would you take me? And they were very much like, well, we don't see you in our plans for the Olympics. And
hard to be any clearer than that.
And like for me, I remember speaking to Joe Filio as my coach at the time.
Yeah.
And Joe he just put the question to me, do you still want to be in this sport if the Olympics are off the table? And for me, it was very much, well, no. Like, and I'd always dreamed about going to Hawaii. Hawaii was, when I was younger, I knew about Hawaii. I didn't know about triathlon, but I knew about Hawaii, the Ironman event.
Yeah.
And everybody always sort of thinks, well, do you regret sort of stepping away so early from ITU and the Olympic distance? But the answer is no, because I remember after me and Joel had spoken and I made my decision, it wasn't as if the next sort of like 2 or 3 weeks I was like second guessing myself. As soon as I woke up the next morning and all of a sudden the new objective was, let's get to Hawaii, let's try and become World Ironman champion. All of a sudden, I was a lot more excited about the sport of triathlon in general than I had been in years.
Because you controlled your own destiny. You know,
yeah, I think so.
With the racing, the ITU racing, the best guy, when you've got 30, 40 guys off the bike together, it's such a crapshoot who's going to win those races. And when somebody tells you, hey, if your goal is to get to the Olympics, and they're saying we don't see you on the Olympic team.
I think saying you control your own destiny, I think that just hit the sort of nail on the head. That was very much, as soon as I don't mind winning and losing,
right?
As long as I have control of it.
Yep.
You know, like for me, that's the bottom line, is that if I qualified for Hawaii or I didn't, it would be down to myself. It wasn't like, oh, well, you're top 55 in the world, but we've decided that you aren't good enough to come to Hawaii, so, you know, come back another time. It was like, if you qualify, and that's it. And you go there and you race for yourself. And for me, that was, I controlled my own destiny.
You were able to go to the Olympics of long distance just by, you knew what the ground rules were. If I do this, I go to Kona, and how I perform in Kona is up to me. Nobody's making a decision saying that guy's going, this guy's going, you're not going. You control it all, which is great.
No, yeah, and I think in Olympic distance, especially in British triathlon and stuff, where there's a lot of lottery funding, it becomes very political. Right. And for me, sport shouldn't be about politics. Like, sport is a celebration of what we can do as athletes. And I think Hawaii sort of is the epitome of that. Like, it is our World Championships, is where Ironman was created. And for us to be going back every single year to do the same course, I think the whole week of celebrations really sort of encompasses what sport should be about.
Pretty pure. The other thing, when you won Ironman UK in 2015, Ironman UK has always been one of those races that, I mean, it's brutal, right? It's like the roads are crap, the hills are brutal, the water's cold. I mean, it's like it's sort of the opposite of Hawaii, where it's warm water, it's clear, it's beautiful. It's brutal in a different way. Won that race.
And when I did it, the first 1 hour was like the most horrific rainfall ever. Like, I remember getting to the first aid station, taking my visor off and throwing it because I couldn't see anything. And I was sort of like, at the start of the bike, I was like, they're going to cancel this race. Like, they have to cancel this race. Like, this is horrific. Like, I'm freezing. I can't see. It's raining so bad. And then the next thing I knew, I was racing Fraser Cartmel and Joe Skipper. And And like also like Fraser attacks me like on the bike. Sort of we've been sort of close for the last sort of the first 15, 20 kilometers, and
Yeah.
this one he sort of attacks and like goes up the road, and that was me like, oh, this is a race. This like it's not being cancelled. This is like brutal. And yeah, that was sort of a big experience. It was like the complete opposite of Hawaii. But I'll always remember that day on coming back on like, I look back on it and I remember two things. Number one was getting to one of the aid stations on the bike. And at this point, it's still like raining. It's horrific. I've not even touched my water yet. Like, it's so cold. I'm not drinking anything. But you have like all the volunteers still standing out in the horrific rain with a big smile on their face, holding out the water for you. And I'm like, this is like awesome. Like, you'd never get this in ITU. And then also because I didn't drink any of the fluids, I got to T2 in quite a bad condition.
Yeah.
So I sat down in T2, put on my socks, shoes, and was just, even though I was second in the race at that point, I was still in like a bad place. And just like the volunteers came over, started giving me coke, and like, no, you're very close to the first, you can do this. And just that sort of like encouragement,
Yeah.
it's just infectious. It just, I don't know how to describe it. I always compare it between like Olympic distance and Ironman. I always feel like Olympic distance is all about business. Whereas you get to Ironman, it's just like this sort of community feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we all feel it, like from the volunteers, the age group athletes, the professional athletes, even the people employed full-time by Ironman. Hopefully you feel it too. It's just this sort of community that love the sport that we do. And for me, that sort of resonates very strongly with me, especially when I compare it to like my experience in Olympic distance, where it was very much like being a part of a cog in a business.
Right.
And
Very
I look back at Ironman UK, and that was sort of a great experience of winning it, but also it really highlighted to me what I got into within the sport of Ironman.
And why you made that move from, draft legal to non-draft, because it is more of a family, more of a community. And on race day, when you're racing UK or Kona, it's you against you and you against the course. The other guys aren't really, they're there, but at the end of the day, it's like you said before, you control your own destiny. How you race is totally up to you.
Oh yeah, and that's it. And again, the beauty of Hawaii is that the course can break you very quickly.
It can. As you found out last year. So now you have to go qualify somewhere to get back to Kona?
Yes, so I don't know what my race plans will be next year. I'm not trying to really think about it because we don't know exactly the situation. Yeah. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Hawaii will be happening next October. I think we'll all be back in Hawaii, and it'll be an incredible experience. I think people will appreciate it even more being there.
Yes.
And yeah, I think, for sure I want to be there. I look forward to the challenge of going to an Ironman event next summer and trying to win it to qualify. And yeah, for me, I want to go back next year. I want to try and win the race next year.
I love it. David, next year we'll be sitting here, right? We'll be at Huggos on the Rocks having some
We will be. I miss it. It's beautiful. Like, I look at it and I'm like, God, I wish I was there.
We will be. We'll be back. David, always appreciate chatting with you. Enjoy your next porridge on me.
Thanks, Bob.
All right, David McNamee has been our guest, everybody. Again, Breakfast with Bob. Hold on. We'll be right back.